Welcome back to the show. I just want to make an announcement that we now have an email, thewaltershubshow@gmail.com. And if you have any questions or thoughts or think I got something wrong, please send in a voice note and we'll play it on the show. I just have a major preference to play those that disagree with me, but I'll definitely try to get to them all. I look forward to hearing from you. We did record an episode on AI and DeepSeek in China. We had some technical difficulties, so we just have to sort that one out, but that should be coming soon. I am planning on recording a debate with my good friend Yosef Wiener on what I got wrong. Hopefully we'll have that for you as soon as possible. All right. So today we're going to talk about government spending, because finally government spending is back in the news thanks to Elon Musk and Doge. And there's a clip that went viral, and I want to talk about it. So let's play that for you now.
Several years, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going toward...
That video went viral because it sounds really crazy, but I think everybody is focusing on those specific things that they're spending money and how ridiculous that is, and they're missing the essential point about the problem with government spending in general. So I want to break down the problem with government spending and explain that really the spending itself is a problem, not the specific causes. So let's get into that. So let's get into it. How does government raise revenue? Government does not produce anything. Government certainly does not operate at a profit. So how does government have the money to spend on things, to invest, as they claim? So there are three primary ways: taxation, borrowing, and printing. So let's discuss what each one is and why it is so detrimental to the economy, and why it leads to what the White House press secretary was talking about. I want to play a clip that went viral between Elizabeth Warren and Elon Musk about taxation, because it really illustrates the point how elected officials have no clue on economics and have no understanding of what the private sector does. So let's listen into that.
The senator first tweeting this, quote, "Let's change the rigged tax code so the person of the year will actually pay taxes and stop freeloading off everybody else." That, of course, is in reference to the Tesla chief, Elon Musk, who is Man of the Year for Time magazine. Then he fires back. He says to her, "Stop projecting," the next day, adding ultimate insults, quote, "Please don't call the manager on me, Senator Karen."
Let's break that down for a second. What Elizabeth Warren is saying is that she has a problem with Elon Musk because he doesn't pay enough taxes, and he's not paying his so-called fair share, and we have a rigged tax system. Now, what does she mean by that exactly? 90% of the income tax is paid by 10% of people in this country. If you're in the top income bracket, you're paying 30% of your income to the government. So just to break down what that means, the top income bracket in this country pays 30% of their income to taxes. That means that until a third of the year passes, you are not working for yourself. You're essentially an indebted slave. And to top that all off, Elizabeth Warren has never produced anything. Why does she think she has a right to take money from people and to spend on what? To spend on what government thinks is a priority? Why should that be the priority? Elon Musk is somebody that is really productive, that is really good at allocating resources, and the government is saying we want to make a fine on productivity. There's no such thing as a fair share. So people that are productive are certainly paying their fair share in what they're delivering to the economy. What the income tax is it is essentially a fine on production. We changed the Constitution to allow the government to turn us into slaves for a certain percent of the year, and that is immoral, and it is not a way to ensure growth. So that's taxation. Then let's talk about borrowing. So the government does not have a balanced budget at all. The government has been borrowing billions and billions of dollars. Now, just the idea that the government should borrow money is totally outrageous. And that is why we have something called a debt limit. How can it be that the government can spend more than it makes? The government is supposed to be the representative of the people. And what they're saying is, we want to spend money now and deliver and saddle future generations with debt. How could we live with ourselves knowing we elected people that essentially are indebting our children? Can you imagine doing that to your children? Can you imagine taking out a loan in their name, spending it on whatever you want, and calling it an investment, and then ripping off your own kids? What kind of a person would you be? Eats into future spending, because what happens with borrowing is that you now have to service that debt. Our government is currently spending billions of dollars on interest payments. Now, just think about that for a second. We left Afghanistan with billions of dollars of military equipment, and we borrowed the money to pay for that equipment. So we are basically making the Taliban's car payments forever now. That is totally the other really insidious factor of borrowing is because the government has to borrow. They lose the ability to increase interest rates. Interest rates are raised to bring down inflation, but they weren't raised nearly enough. And the reason is because if interest rates would go up, our economy would totally crash. That's because we borrow money. The government would basically be in the same position as commercial real estate now, where they just wouldn't be able to make the payments. So it would totally destroy the economy. But the ability to raise interest rates is the only real way to bring down inflation. So you've destroyed that tool because of reckless spending and borrowing. The last and most evil way that government creates revenue is by printing. Now let's talk about why that is so evil. So most of us around the world have been hit with the terrible cost of inflation. And progressives will tell you that inflation is caused by corporate greed. If inflation was caused by greed, then why don't we always have runaway inflation? We've always been told that corporations are always greedy. Does it come in phases? Are they sometimes greedy and sometimes not? Are we to believe that these evil capitalists are only greedy sometimes, that they only want money sometimes? Very strange thing. And so to talk about what actually causes inflation, let's hear from the great Professor Milton Friedman on this topic.
Inflation is made in Washington because only Washington can create money. And any other attribution to other groups of inflation is wrong. Consumers don't produce it. Producers don't produce it. The trade unions don't produce it. Foreign sheiks don't produce it. Oil imports don't produce it. What produces it is too much government spending and too much government creation of money and nothing else.
All right, so let's just break down what that means. Suppose a bunch of us were dumped on a desert island, 5 of us, let's say, and I developed a talent for fishing, shockingly. I never expected to be good at fishing. And a friend of mine has discovered that he can make clothes, and another guy has discovered he can farm a little bit, and the other 2 join my fishing business because I can't come up with something creative to give them to do yet. So I have a fishing business, the other guy's making clothes, somebody's farming, and we decide that, this trade is not working well. So we discover some rare pearls, and we decide that's going to be our money. And it's working great. And one of our friends, on the other side of the island, discovers a big bag of pearls. So are we richer now? The answer is obvious. No, because the money is just supposed to be a reflection of the value of the economy. That's the way fiat money is supposed to work. Inflation can only be caused by people that are in charge of the money supply. Regular prices going up and down is normal. That's just regular supply and demand. If something is more expensive, it is because that it is in demand and it is scarce. Everything has a level of scarcity. There's always diminishing utility, and the price of something is defined by the market. But things like that should go up and down. Inflation is there because the Fed prints money. They claim to want a little bit of inflation in order to keep people investing and not saving. And what that means is that they are punishing people that save money. And you can claim that it's better to invest money than to save it. Like, that is only because interest rates are kept low enough for saving money not to be worth it. If there was 10% interest rates, it would make a lot of sense to just keep it in the bank and let the bank handle the risk of that. But because the government dilutes the money supply, so you're forced to spend it. And let's talk about how they dilute the money supply, because it's actually quite evil. What does the Fed do? The Fed doesn't actually tell the Treasury, "Oh, let's start printing dollars." What they do is they give that money out in investments, or they buy investments, and so they create money in a hidden way. So that money flows into the economy, and the first people, the most well-connected people, the big banks, have the first run at that money before the market has priced in the money supply. So that money gets spread around. Those people get to buy at the previous rates, and then when the market responds to the extra money supply, you now have diluted money. Printing money is so evil because it essentially robs you of your money without any need to take it, just diluting what you have. So this is the way government creates revenue. One may claim, okay, but government spends money on important things. We have Social Security, we have Medicaid, government helps people that are in need, they have the social safety net. What is wrong with that? What is so immoral about that? So before we get into all the destruction that is caused by government spending, I just want to bring it back to the essential founding principles of this country and what the federal government was actually supposed to do. For those who don't know, Davy Crockett was a senator. Colonel David Crockett was a senator, and he gave a very powerful speech to Congress. So there was a case where Congress wanted to allocate a sum of a few $1,000s to support the widow of a fallen soldier. And Davy Crockett voted against it. And when asked why he voted against it, he related an interaction he had with a constituent. Davy Crockett met a farmer who he had met on his last time campaigning, and he said to him, "Are you going to vote for me again?" And he replied, "No, I definitely will not vote for you again, because you don't appear to understand the Constitution." And he related a story that Davy Crockett had voted for some spending to support the victims of a fire that happened in Washington. And this is what he said to him. I'm going to read the whole thing. I'm probably going to butcher it, but these words are very important. "The power of collecting and distributing money at pleasure is the most dangerous power that can be trusted to man, particularly under our system of collecting revenue, which reaches every man in the country, no matter how poor he may be. While you are contributing to relieve one, you are drawing from thousands who are even worse off than he. If he had the right to give anything, the amount was simply a matter of discretion with you, and you had the right to give 20 million as you had the right to give 20,000. If you have the right to give one, you have the right to give all." What he's essentially saying is that if you assume that government can hand out charity, so then the question isn't how much. The question of how much they could give is not specified in the Constitution. And as he says, "As the Constitution neither defines charity nor stipulates the amount, you are at liberty to give any and everything which you may believe or profess to believe is charity, and any amount you may think proper." And this is the most important point. You will very easily perceive what a wide door this would open for fraud and corruption and favoritism. So then he finished like this: "No, Colonel, Congress has no right to give charity. Individual members may give as much as their own money as they pleasure, but they have no right to touch a dollar of public money for this purpose. The people have delegated to Congress by the Constitution the power to do certain things. To do these, it is authorized to collect and pay monies, and for nothing else. Everything beyond this is a usurpation and a violation of the Constitution." You see, Colonel, you have violated the Constitution in what I consider a vital point. And so let's break that down. What he's essentially saying is that if government can spend money on anything, then they can give any amount to anyone, and they'll just pick favorites. And so this wise American was saying that if you assume that government just simply does not have the power to take money from somebody and give it to somebody else, you can believe that there are a lot of important causes in the world. You can believe there are a lot of important causes in this country. But if the Constitution does not allow you to give it, then it is stealing, and it's stealing public money. And so you hear these politicians talking about, oh, we just care, we're just bleeding hearts. You're not. You're a bunch of thieves. You do not have the right to take that money and give charity on someone's dime. If you want to give charity, that's great, but you don't have the right to take it. And think about how and focus on how far we've come from that. And to that point, I want to play for you an amazing interaction between Jon Stewart and the Deputy Defense Secretary under Biden. He's discussing with her about the fact that the Department of Defense has never passed an audit. And when we say they haven't passed an audit, they don't know where hundreds of billions of dollars have gone. And look at what this smug, evil woman has to say about that.
About, and you're asking me other questions, but I don't think it's unfair to ask me about the audit. It's absolutely the case that the United States military should be able to pass an audit, and we've got to be on that pathway to get there.
But don't you think that does speak to the larger point that we're trying to get at?
Let's just unpack how ridiculous it is what she just said. The Department of Defense ought to be able to pass a budget, and we are moving on the path to that. Now, every year, I have to file my taxes. The government knows how much money I made. I'm a W-2 employee. And they already have the money. It's already been paid. If I mess up on that audit, it's a federal crime. If the IRS decides to audit me and they find that I'm missing funds, I can go to jail or be fined. And this lady is saying that the government, not the private person who ought to be able to hide things from the government, but the government should be in the path. The public money should be in the path to passing an audit. Now it gets way better than this. Let's have a listen.
Trying to get at, which is good journalism uncovers corruption. And
okay, I mean, good journalism does uncover corruption, but I'm not sure these two things are linked. An audit is not.
But they are.
Okay, so you need to.
She's asking now for an explanation of how not passing an audit and corruption are linked. Can you imagine? Can you imagine saying that to the IRS? The fact that I don't know, that I can't produce the money that I've made, and that I can't account for some of my spending, that's not indicative of corruption. But listen to her.
Explain to me, do you understand what an audit does and the degree to which it is linked to the question that you're asking?
I believe so.
Okay, go ahead. Give me your explanation.
No, I don't mind learning. So what I would suggest is that
just the most smug person in the world. The mixture of incompetence and arrogance in our federal government. This is the Deputy Secretary of Defense.
That the audit that they have in the military doesn't really look at whether or not there's efficacy. It's just whether they got delivered the thing that they ordered. And
that is any audit. That is any audit. That is true.
But generally, those audits aren't $400 billion for Raytheon and $1.7 trillion for a plane that doesn't seem to be doing. Like, there is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's decompose these pieces for a moment.
Please educate me on
sure.
What
so an audit is exactly what you just described,
yes.
which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit, or the fact that the DoD has not passed an audit, is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is completely false right there. So
what is
now it's a question of, it's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where. That is not the same as saying we can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So in my world, that's waste.
How is that waste?
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you are not responsible. But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to think?
Look at that smug smile. If we can't account for $400 billion, of course that is indicative of fraud and abuse. Just this week, the corrupt dictator of Ukraine, discussed the money that he has been receiving. So let's have a listen.
Але коли говорять, що Україна під час війни отримала 200 мільярдів на підтримку.
So for those that don't speak Ukrainian, he's saying that the US government pledged $200 billion to support Ukraine. And they're saying they never got it. They have only received $75 billion of the aid that the US sent to them. Now let's even break that down further. The Department of Defense and the US government in general will spend something like $16 on a cupcake. So when they price something like an M16 or like a missile, you know that the cost is already inflated. So take the $200 billion allocated and take the $200 billion allocated, $125 billion has already disappeared. Then take the $75 billion they do have, and then just assume that the actual value is only a third of that. And so we've moved so far away from what Davy Crockett invented. And this sort of lack of accountability is because we've totally lost control of what government is for. And so many of you, I'm sure, I even think that there should be some defense spending. But whenever you're parceling out money across the world, you are saying, I don't work for the American people, and I can take this money and spend on it how I like. And once you get to that point, then there can be no accountability. There's a very famous Ron Paul quote. He says, foreign aid is when you take money from poor people in rich countries and give it to rich people in poor countries. And people have become rich on this war. And the reason for the war, Ukraine has no chance of winning this war. It's impossible. So why is this war continuing? Because the only explanation for the war is because it is a boon for the defense industry, and so we're perpetuating a war just to increase spending. Now, some people say, well, wars are good for the economy. Bad allocation of resources is not good for the economy. Bad allocation of resources is wasteful. Money, jobs, and money in and itself are not good for the economy. Productivity is good for the economy. Let's watch a little clip from the great John Stossel about the $2 million bathroom in 16th Avenue Park in Borough Park for the
$2 million? I had to check it out.
I was expecting gold-plated fixtures. It's just a toilet, couple urinals, 2 sinks, $2 million?
Do the people who use this park know what taxpayers paid for their bathroom? What should something like this cost?
A couple thousand.
70,000 bucks for the millions. For this is ridiculous. Where does the money go?
Good question. Everything costs more when government builds it. Washington.
So it's not only about defense spending. Government wastes money on everything, but it's worse than that. Think about what that means. So they built this $2 million bathroom. Not only did they waste our money to produce that, but think of the lost utility cost. They seized money from productive people to spend $2 million on a bathroom. They also artificially raised the cost of building because they are paying more money than the market would ever give. And they've taken away money from people that would do interesting things with it. Another aspect of this is government is run by people that, if they would be in any workplace, they would be fired. Look at let's watch just a little comical clip between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jasmine Crockett. These are two sitting United States congresswomen.
You know what we're here for? You know we're here about AG.
I don't think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about. I
think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order.
All right. So here you have Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jasmine Crockett yelling at each other about how they look. Do you want these people allocating money? If you think about it, any market that the government gets into is always destroyed, that is not heavily regulated or that is not controlled by the government. You're getting better quality at lower prices, account for inflation. And any market that the government gets involved in becomes totally out of control. Think education, healthcare, college. The cost of college is totally skyrocketed, even though the quality is down. The cost of housing has skyrocketed. The cost of healthcare has skyrocketed. And why has the cost skyrocketed? Because government has stepped into that market and has destroyed it. So government spending is a problem, and that's why I want to recap about what we said earlier. The White House press secretary was going on about oh, they're paying for transgender operas and DEI in Serbia, and those things are all ridiculous. But if you would ask Republicans, should we allocate money to some conservative charity or some conservative cause, they'll be like, yeah, let's spend money, and that's such a good cause. We want to give money to that. We want to support that. And that is essentially the same thing. Because like David Crockett said, the minute government says that we can take money and redistribute it how we see fit, you've already given up the premise that Congress has a specific job to do. And we should never give up on that premise. Because the taxation of your income isn't just about money. It's the theft of a portion of your life. Every dollar taken represents time and effort and sacrifice that you will never get back. The federal government has grown beyond reform. It must be fundamentally gutted. The loss of any unnecessary government job is a net positive for the economy. Not only does it eliminate waste, but it also removes positions that erode our freedoms and concentrate power where it was never meant to be. The government should serve its people, not rule over them. And so I was pleasantly surprised when Chuck Schumer made this comment on the Senate floor.
Donald Trump does not have the authority to erase an independent agency created by Congress, nor can the Department of State absorb USAID, especially because now there is basically nothing left to absorb. We also know this is just the beginning. If DOJ attacks USAID today, then you can be sure they'll move on to another target tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the Postal Service or the IRS or even the Social Security Administration. They could be next. Or maybe our National Security Agency.
Yes, Chuck, maybe they will be next. We can only hope. President Trump was elected to bring back efficiency to government. And he is the first president in my lifetime that is actually making good on that promise. And so, Chuck, make my day. And so bring it on. I hope you're right. And to all those people that are crying about the loss of foreign aid, I give you the wise words of the former Kenyan president.
I saw some people the other day crying, oh, I don't know, Trump has removed money. He said he's not giving us any more money. Watu wanalia. Why are you crying? It's not your government, it's not your country. He has no reason to give you anything. I mean, you don't pay taxes in America. He is appealing to his people. Shauri yenu bana. This is a wake-up call for you to say, okay, what are we going to do to help ourselves?
That is exactly right. No one could have put it better. That will do it for the show today, guys. There's some great episodes coming up. We'll see you soon.